I activate this card.
Well, I activate this card.
Then I activate this card.
And I activate this card.
Activate this card.
I activate this.
Well, I activate this.
And I activate your mama.
Then I activate...
Kyle Rayner vs Simon the Digger is the next confirmed Death Battle episode, and in this video I'm gonna give my 1, 2, 3 cents on who I think takes each category. We will try to understand the sheer infinity plus 1 bullshit that both fighters carry to the table. This meme video at the beginning was barely an exaggeration, and if you happen to be fond of my versus content, or any of my videos honestly, then in brightest day or blackest night, let the like and subscribe buttons shine bright. Thank you. Gurren Lagann is unironically one of the best stories I've ever seen across any medium. At the start, you think you know what you're in for, being a mech anime, so you know, giant robots fighting, but no, my boy, no. You simply ain't. What it is a masterpiece in pacing, story, character work, comedy, action, and somehow drama all at once. Not to mention the unforeseen scale of it all. It's just big storytelling in a 28 episodes and a movie. I urge you to go check this anime out if you haven't already, especially since this video will include spoilers. And then there's Kyle. Okay, look, can you imagine how funny would it have been if they announced this as Simon vs Kyle? Like, what's that? A South Park episode? Also yes, it's indeed pronounced Simon and not Simon. I don't make the rules. But as far as Green Lanterns go, Kyle Rayner is somewhat of an anomaly. Across various live-action attempts, the vast majority of human Green Lanterns receiving an animated adaptation at least 2-3 times at minimum, and with all of them getting a dedicated movie each if not more, Kyle got exactly one animated adaptation, period. Like, it's really funny how much DC seems to actively hate this guy. For all intents and purposes, Kyle Rayner is an absolute underdog in terms of popularity and recognition here, but not power scaling, because he's still a comic book herald at the end of the day, and up until recently, that alone has been an insta-win coin against pretty much every non-comic book herald. I've heard conflicting rumors on whether this matchup started out as a spite idea against heralds in general, not certainly helped by the now infamous last time a Green Lantern was on the show, or as a genuine matchup idea that actually aims to look deep into both characters, their fascinating similarities, their ridiculously complex debate and such, which by present day evolved into a genuine toss-up that could actually honestly go either way. Not gonna lie, for the longest time I always disliked this matchup. Because I wasn't exactly looking forward to a beloved protag of one of my favorite stories ever being fed to a comic book herald. Nowadays, I find it a much more compelling matchup to discuss and dissect, as you'll see soon enough in this video. But if you're completely clueless on either character, however, it's fully reasonable to ask, who are these people? They were both ordinary young men with relatively mundane and boring lives before coming into contact with a space artifact powered by a mysterious green glow, kickstarting their zero to hero journeys as they become cosmic guardians. Both act as successors to mentors who channeled this aforementioned cosmic energy before them, receiving their blessings as they pass down the proverbial torch to them. In a very, hey, I don't want you to become the next me, I want you to become the best you type of way. Both soon learned about previous wielders of such cosmic energies, who got sadly wiped out by one of their own, who got corrupted by a multiversal entity that represents the opposite of their energies. The indomitable force of the human spirit is a defining character trait for both, to the point that it helped them attain stronger and stronger cosmic forms, becoming outright multiversal protectors. Lastly, believe it or not, Kyle Rayner himself is a massive weeb and Gurren Lagann fan. As it happens to be a construct Kyle has created the best, who loves to create all kinds of mechs and vehicles and kaijus with his power ring. Forget hands and bubbles. Maybe he's gonna play a role sort of like Rick knowing about Doctor Who, but maybe not enough to change the verdict, who knows. Experience, skills and intelligence. Stats and scaling. Oh boy, ladies and gents, welcome to Aka Krypton's very first attempt to explain dimensional power scaling. And good luck to the Death Battle writers trying to keep power scaling as mainstream audience friendly as they usually try to with this one. Okay, so if I say universal, you understand we're talking about the power to destroy something roughly the size of our observable universe. Universal plus means the same thing, but including the fourth dimension, aka time. Multiversal means you can either destroy one or many multiverses. So far easy to follow, right? Well, anything beyond 4 dimensions gets us into the infamous low complex multiverse, aka the power to affect/destroy multiple infinitely sized structures, or affected an infinite amount of multiverses in general. From 8 dimensions onwards we get into hyperversal, with high hyperversal meaning you can affect infinite dimensions altogether. And if you are above dimensions altogether, then baby, welcome to outerversal. And the highest reach of existence possible while trying to keep it simple is what we will call boundless, which is exactly what it says on the tin. All clear? No? I don't blame you. The Gurren Lagann cosmology is said to go anywhere from 11 to 20 dimensions if not infinitely size, aka high complex to hyperversal, with Simon at the end being able to go blow for blow with anti-spiral, who can affect all of that. Meanwhile, the DC multiverse is, to be blunt as possible, it's an infinite made of infinites. As White Lantern, Kyle can scale to beings who can destroy that thing entirely, even holding control of something called the life equation, more on that later, which exists beyond the source wall. For reference, the only other thing after the source wall is the white in the pages that separate comic book panels. Yeah, so the conversation ends here and Kyle easily takes the strength power category, right? There is some disagreements on whether Kyle scales beyond the high complex multiversal, saying that quote, only being beyond infinite dimensions does not grant you outerversal ranking, both sides accuse each other of wanking or nerfing the other all the time, and honestly, it's the internet, what's new? If you go deep into Gurren Lagann cosmology, with audio dramas and whatnot, you will find stuff like Simon turns all of his cells into more universes. Simon creates a 2D universe that's literally a fictional relative of himself and his universe, which will be an outerversal fit, and also him fusing with every single alternate universe version of himself across space and time. There are 3 options. Either Kyle takes this category but that's meaningless because Simon's power grew to an exponentially infinite degree when fighting against anti-spiral anyway. Number 2, they somehow equate their cosmologies leading us to a power tie, which is possible if you go by audio dramas. Or number 3, they go as far as saying that Simon takes attack potency, cosmology, Scientology, cryptozoology. I hate dimensional power scaling. Not gonna lie, I don't even think Simon needs a superior cosmology to win. In fact, I deem it an even bigger W if he wins even with that starting disadvantage. Refer to a previous episode. Simon's max potential stops anything Kyle has shown per se, but Lada's power advantage is more consistent, so yeah, we'll give it to Kyle as a safe bet. For reasons you can probably understand. As far as speed goes, they're honestly both completely incompatible with the speed formula, operating outside spacetime and everything. This would grant them a comfortably shared spot anywhere between the immeasurable to infinite speed ranges. Granted, Kyle is a DC Herald, so the chances of him once, I don't know, moving faster than the panda was drawing him in issue 69 or something are never zero, but for the sake of simplicity, this is a tie as well. Whoa, quite the powers! Okay, so if you've been around the internet and you're hopefully subscribed to my channel, I'm pretty sure you have at least a baseline knowledge of what Green Lanterns can do. If you have a strong willpower, you get chosen by these Megamind looking fellas to become a space cop, a wing that allows you to build anything your imagination thinks of, as long as it's a solid object and not something you gotta consume, you know? Sometimes, it depends on the writer. There are 7 emotional spectrums with their own sort of variations and emotions, but green is the main one. Kyle Rayner comes with a standard Green Lantern kit. Flight, universal translator, energy shields and barriers, lasers, weapons, telekinesis and such. What separates Kyle from the other lanterns, however, is that he later becomes a White Lantern, the one lantern able to combine all 7 emotional spectrums into one. It also grants access to what's called the life equation. not to be mistaken with Darkseid's anti-life equation, aka the universe way of saying that life is meaningless and tyranny is inevitable. No, this is the polar opposite of that. The life equation is the irrefutable proof that all life is meaningful, the cosmic concept of the free and unbound human spirit. Simon's spiral power, not gonna lie, is basically the exact same thing, as it embodies the power of not only humanity's evolution and fighting spirit, but yes, all emotions in general. And as you may be able to guess, honestly, I'm just gonna skip to this being another tie, because they honestly carry near identical power sets. Energy manipulation, teleportation, flight, creation, non-physical interaction, warp time, transcend dimensions, bringing the dead back to life, energy absorption, and such. Now, Kyle does have the power to drain willpower by using the red, orange, and yellow lantern powers, but Simon managed to escape a dimensional trap that affected his mind and emotions across the entire infinite multiverse. This is the easiest tie I've ever done for a matchup so far, but to get more concrete answers, we gotta get into the bread and butter of this bad boy, the trump cards, aka... In case you're somehow unaware of what Hax means, it's basically those kinds of powers/abilities that are more or less boiled down to fuck you, time stop, fuck you, invisible shield, fuck you, you're a snail now. As you may or may not guess, these cheat codes of sorts usually throw a big wrench inside debates that would normally be about, say, how fast a character can run or punch. The wrench in this debate is a little bit itsy bitsy tiny whiny little thing called the source wall, and its source code, the life equation. If the life equation gets interpreted in the ways I've seen many interpret it, this could more or less grant Kyle a level of reality warping unlike what even Simon has ever contended with. I'm talking stuff like potentially writing him out of history entirely here. This is because the source wall is at the literal borders of DC's multiversal cosmology. With the life equation, Kyle can basically create his own source wall of sorts, albeit a much smaller version obviously, because you can't stack 100 potatoes inside your AirPod case. And if you thought that analogy was oddly specific, remember the last time we had a Green Lantern on the show and the time travel at an advantageous point sparking a certain meme? Well, I am happy to say that a fellow Yuri Lowenthal voice character has a very specific "oh no you don't" to this. Simon has the power to fire missiles towards your general direction and timeline, meaning that you will get it across every single point of your past, present and future. Cherry on top, Simon can control the probability of them hitting you, meaning that even if there was a 0% chance of them landing, nope, now there is. But whoop, wait again, there's more. The Legion of Superheroes villain Time Trapper is an all-causal being with complete control over time, to the point of controlling other causal beings. In the 0 Hour event, when Hal Jordan was in his villain arc as Parallax, he wiped away the Time Trapper from existence, and White Lantern is leagues beyond Parallax in power. So you could make the argument of Kyle simply resisting probability altogether. Maybe? At the worst, they're both beyond what's probable, and honestly, that sounds perfectly in character for both. You gotta understand, Lantern Wings are more or less wish-granting devices, with stronger wishes needing to be fueled by equally strong emotions, to seemingly no limit. One time, a Green Lantern Corps villain literally made himself invincible against the Green Lantern energy. How did Hal Jordan beat him, you may ask? Well, he simply wished for all of his attacks to be particularly effective on people that made themselves invincible against the Green Lantern energy. An affront to our logical sense? Yes. Did the ring accomplish such task anyway? Yes. And does Simon's spiral energy work on the exact same logic? Yes! Spiral energy is basically the embodiment of evolution and transcendence. The willpower and belief to make it regardless of any odds. So again, another stalemate. The question now goes as follows. Is Simon's a causality enough to override even Kyle's life equation? The latter having the capacity to potentially write Simon out of reality? Do you take in consideration how deeply inexperienced Kyle is with this cheat code of his? Do you even consider it standard to begin with? I mean, look, Thanos got the Infinity Gauntlet and the Uchiha villains got the Six Paths makeover. I would be vastly more surprised if they didn't give Kyle the life equation. I'm just terribly curious about what they're gonna do with it. We now went from the duel of indomitable human spirit to the indomitable human spirit of Gurren Lagann against the cold and uncaring size of DC cosmology. There's also the fact that Simon grows in power frighteningly quick, going from like galaxy level to 20 dimensional or something in 20 minutes or so. All of this to say that if Kyle were to win, and if the Death Battle team was sincere about Simon's power growth, he would need to go for the kill as soon as humanly possible, which would not be in character for Kyle in the slightest. He's more so a lover than a fighter. Picture Season 1 Invincible. That's the type of character Kyle Rayner is, which not gonna lie, I really like that. I always find those type of innocent, wholesome heroes very charming. I wouldn't put it past Death Battle to find one panel from one issue from 1907 that shows a character on par with Simon failing to counter the life equation. We did get stuff like that recently after all, but as it currently stands, the life equation in this matchup is more or less the equivalent of the ultimate nullifier in Galactus vs Unicorn. Besides the bigger stuff, there's also the fact that both characters have honestly either used or countered the exact same things: controlling probability, warping reality on a multiversal scale, time travel, plot alteration, energy absorption, and just so much bullshit. I would call this category a tie 51 times out of 52, believe me, I know most would. But there's this one tiny, itsy bitsy little element I think gives Simon the slightest but most meaningful edge. He managed to beat Anti-Spiral in the latter's own universe, in which he had complete and total control over, messing with the loss of reality to erase evolution altogether as a concept, trapped Simon inside an infinitely sized multiverse labyrinth. How well did that go? Well, to quote a famous musician,
"It's not enough."
Simon escapes the labyrinth by absorbing all versions of himself across the infinite multiverse into him, gaining infinite layers of mind, emotion, and soul resistance. His potential for growth is simply limitless. White Lantern might be representative of life, but Spiral Energy is life. It's the manifestation of living beings' will to evolve and defy limitations. It doesn't stop, it evolves. Team Gurren wasn't throwing galaxies like shurikens to brute force alone, no. It's will-powered, fueled reality warping. White Lantern channels the emotional spectrum, but it's bound by its framework. Spiral Energy transcends that. Hell, if Simon gets more powerful by absorbing the hopes and dreams of every living being across time and space, then Kyle might just end up being a juicy battery for him to fuel upon, turning his superior attack potency against himself. Not gonna lie, that would be peak cinema material in a battle that's already kinda that for most aspects. Simon takes Hax. Weaknesses. For all of his advantages and comparable space craziness, Simon does start out with overall weaker stats in the strength and attack potency department. Notable, because again, DC cosmology goes burr. Then again, exponential power growth also goes burr. On the topic of power, and despite it being an effective approach 100% of the time, Simon's strategy rarely strays off from fuck it with real, fuck it with real, fuck it with real. Whereas Kyle is both a comic book artist and a Green Lantern, which gives him major advantage in the creativity department and capacity to think outside the box. How much will that help against someone who thought his way out of an infinite number of boxes? We shall see. As you may or may not be aware, Lantern Wings need a recharge after 24 hours of usage. They also require concentration, and that's gonna be very difficult with undodgeable planet-sized missiles hitting you across every single point in time. Simon's range of scale with his multiversal constructs is also beyond anything Kyle has ever had to contend with. White Lantern is also a famously tedious power-up for Kyle to keep up for a long time without rest. The life equation is even implied to be mentally corruptive, unlike Spiral Power. Yeah, overall, Simon simply packs much less anti-feats, and much more chances to win a potential battle of attrition. Hell, he holds control over the little concept of chances. Remember this super bad thingy that was floating a few years back? Basically, all Jordan was brainwashed, again, so the world finest duo combined the willpower to use Al's ring and fuse together, from what I gathered, which may set a precedent for Green Lantern wings to be vulnerable to hijacking if overpowered by willpower stronger than its wielder. On that note, a unique matchup deserves a unique category. If you're familiar with the concept of Green Lantern, you might have always wondered how do you measure willpower? Like, to create the classic bubble around them, do they need to desire it with all of their hearts, or just passively want it? Well, it's kind of a major theme of this matchup, so let's not half-ass it. Both Kyle and Simon have pushed against the odds time and time again out of sheer determination and willpower. Examples include fellow Green Lantern Hal Jordan powering his way against the very god of willpower, or Simon himself spiral powering his way out of a reality that shouldn't even have spiral power. Sky's the limit doesn't mean jack shit to these two, because I'd wager there is the limit for them. Kyle's willpower obviously offers higher ends, but Simon's has had a higher calculable power and potential to match his opponent. They both have basically infinite willpower and potential. Both can brag about winning fights they had zero potential chances of victory in, and honestly, we kinda wish to fall into what us power scales call the no limits fallacy, a concept that doesn't have the best reputation in the community. However, with this matchup, Spiral Power is basically a no limits fallacy on its own. I can 100% see Simon willing himself to get stronger forever until not even White Lantern can do anything about it, especially when he can absorb the latter's freaking energy. Erasing Spiral Power was enough to deprive Simon of Spiral Power, so I just don't see Kyle winning in this department. Kyle was confirmed to be more creative than Hal Jordan, sure, but when it came to stronger willpower, Mr. Rayner had to be happy with taking the second place on that podium, and I can safely say history would just repeat itself here. Animation potential. Yep, this is the kind of matchup where I deem animation potential to be worthy of a whole category. First off, capitalize on the creativity that a Lantern can bring in a fight, please. Especially a kaiju / transformer fanboy like Kyle freaking Rayner. Like, I never got why military dudes always end up becoming Lanterns. Even my boy Jon Stewart got turned from architect to marine for some fucking reason. A comic book artist like Kyle just begs to have his creativity be properly displayed in more mediums, so no ends or bubbles. I want him to summon a freaking Gypsy Danger Goku Gandalf the Black, Gandalf the White. Also, Simon started out drilling 2 walls, and him doing so against a freaking source wall would be the holy shit crossover moment in this fight, bar none. And yes, Kyle would have an absolute nerdgasm in response to that happening. The setup could go a few different directions. You can have the cop route, in which Kyle is sent after Simon because, you know, spiral energy is dangerous and everything, which okay, would make kinda sense. It's kinda like a kid fidgeting with a nuke, and Simon does and will say he knows how to use it responsibly, but from a space cop perspective, that won't stop him from pulling out the metaphorical handcuffs, you know? The second option is the fanboy route, in which Kyle fully geeks out about meeting the Simon the Digger for one of his favorite anime, kickstarting a Poe Fist / Might-esque kind of sparring. I'm usually not head over heels for this dynamic, but it can work here specifically. Kyle is a lover more than a fighter, and Simon won't fight unless it's to defend something or someone he loves, so it would be kinda sad if either was portrayed to be uncharacteristically hostile, you know? Or hell, mix up the two, with Kyle first being sent to investigate a powerful nexus of willpower and the cosmos, only to freak out when he doesn't find a Green Lantern battery, and freaking out even more when he realizes he's the Heaven Piercer himself. Obviously, I want the fight to have them go drill for drill, construct for construct, make Galactus vs Unicorn look like Ant-Man vs the Atom in terms of scale, have Hal Jordan and Kamina cameo in the background to motivate their successors. Honestly, above all else, I am curious about how the ending will go. I mean, not just the verdict, I mean stuff like the winner resurrecting the loser with their respective energies, Simon reuniting with his brother and wife in heaven if he loses, and this scene that will make me absolutely lose it, besides Simon drilling through the source wall, is if during the fight all of a sudden things get quiet and we hear the words "Simon the Digger, you possess great willpower, welcome to the Green Lantern Corps," as the wing flies from Kyle to Simon, then suddenly anti-monitor and anti-spiral pop up, and in a scene reminiscent of upgraded Rex from the Ben 10 crossover, Simon uses both spiral energy and the Green Lantern power to summon a colossal drill that even pierces through the simulation screen. I'm probably setting myself up for disappointment, but trust me, the animation potential for this fight is completely off any scale we've ever seen in this show. I don't think there's ever gonna be a fight where you can go out as much as this one, honestly. It's the same animator as Ghost Rider vs Spawn, so you know they will cook so hard that the kitchen will probably explode, but still. Better settle my expectations, however. I mean, remember guys, animation takes time. Of all the DC Heralds vs non-Marvel matchups we've had in over 200 episodes of that battle, Gurren Lagann undeniably boasts the closest thing to a comparable cosmology. That alone is a stellar achievement. It also means that we may have a non-Marvel fella triumphing over DC Herald, which, not gonna lie, has been my highest hope for this matchup ever since it was announced. As I was pretty damn tired of the idea of big cosmology always means instant win thingy, and this notion was snuffed out by the arguably still debatable Spawn Rider, much to my enthusiasm. But having now looked deep into Kyle's character, and seeing how wholesome, creative, and supportive, and relatable as an artist he is, not gonna lie, I kinda feel bad for rooting so badly against him this whole time. He is quite easily the most underrated and honestly coolest looking human Green Lantern, despite my boy Jon Stewart forever being my favorite. That said though, sorry, I'm still rooting for Simon. I mean, come on. We are talking about a guy with potentially infinite strength growth, whose final fight involved bitch slapping a freaking reality warping god to the face. How else do you expect him to fare in this fight? Oh no, oh fuck, oh shit!